What is going on, Gulf Coast Nation? Guys, welcome back to another episode. Again, we are bringing you guys a bonus episode between our Tuesday episodes, our normal ones. We want to keep doing these bonus episodes like this to keep bringing you guys videos that are just helpful tips and tricks, things we do in and out of our shark fishing, offshore, inshore, back of the truck action. So we will keep doing Tuesday's videos. I don't want you guys to think that is going to change. Tuesday's videos will be action-packed as well as loaded with little bits of information, bits, tips, tricks, that kind of stuff. But these bonus episodes are going to be a little bit different content than what we normally bring. And this week, we are going to be showing you guys the all-famous Terra Firma tackle float rig from Terra Firma Tackle. We're going to be showing you guys how they come in, how to set them up, and how to fish them the most effectively so you can pop fish just like we've been doing on them. Let's do it.
Fish on, fish on.
So I should introduce these rigs to you if you've never seen them before. They are from terrafirmatackle.com, an awesome sponsor of ours. Spencer Wonder is the founder, owner, operator, shipping manager, toilet cleaner. He does it all, man. The guy is a flipping legend. We've met up with Spencer a bunch of times, so if you haven't seen any of the videos of Spencer, I'll link them in the description or play them in the top right corner of your screen or something like that. But we've met up with Spencer on all home turf, smack tigers, duskies, a Mako shark from the beach in the Panhandle from this rig. And then we also went to Cali. We accidentally caught a couple great white sharks from the beach on these float rigs. So they work for big pelagic fish, sharks, pelagic sharks. I'm sure they'll work for pelagic fish too, by the way. But let me show you guys. Now that you guys know what these leaders are capable of, let me show you guys how to unpack them. So they're gonna come in like this. They're probably gonna be coiled a little bit smaller. We've already used this one. So I coiled, this is how we coil our leaders up. They're gonna come coiled up in a bag. So the first thing you're gonna do is go ahead and uncoil these leaders and get everything kind of laid out. They are equipped with the lovely Sandbar Tackle 24-aught hooks. You will wanna I take like a pair of big crimpers and just crimp that barb down. Smash the barb down a little bit. Don't grind it because you don't want to cut that coating. It'll start rusting. Just crimp it down and get it a little bit lower profile barb. It works for some people. We just prefer to do it mainly so the dehooking process is a lot easier. So he makes these float rigs in two different styles. This one is obviously the Panhandle Terra Firma Tackle float rig because we fish in the Panhandle of Florida. But if you guys are fishing on the West Coast, this cable section is going to be a lot longer. But for the Panhandle rigs, I think he makes them 8 foot long total. So your bait doesn't sit as deep in the water column. And I will be explaining that in just a second. It's going to look confusing. There's lots of swivels and connections and what's a who's it's. But I'll break it down for you. Don't worry. Don't worry. So you've got, the first thing you're going to notice when you're uncoiling is you've got your, I think this is just about, a little over 6 foot. So probably about an 8 foot section, 7-8 foot section. And it's got cable to your hook. So just put it off to the side, run your swivel, this sliding swivel right here. Run it all the way down to the other side. There's going to be a snap swivel right here. So run it down to your snap swivel. And then you're just going to start uncoiling your leader. And this leader is 900-pound mono. Then you get to your other side. So you're going to notice that this side, one side has a snap swivel, the other side has a barrel swivel, right? Okay, and then you've got your 900-pound mono going all the way back down to your cable side. So when you are setting these things up, the first thing that you're going to do is, obviously, like I've got it right here, tie your main line off to the swivel, okay? It's gonna go up to your rod tip, and just for the purposes, I'm gonna put it up here by these rods, just to give you guys a little bit of a visual break there. Okay, so that goes up to your rod. You've got all of this mono section here, and it might look a little bit confusing, but like I said, I'm gonna break it down for you guys. I was also forgetting, when they come in the pack, you're gonna get a float. This is a float that we had hanging on the wall in here. It was the float that we caught our Mako shark on. It was pretty cool. When he hit the bait, he first hit the float. So he attacked the float. That's kind of cool. We got teeth marks in it, so we had it hanging up. But you're gonna get a Terra Firma tackle float. So basically, when you're on the beach, what you're gonna do is you take your hook section first. What I would recommend, after you tie on your swivel to your main rod, it's up there. It's out of the way. You can see this line makes sense. Goes all the way up. Take your hook and you're going to hook the bait. These are normally going to be fin baits. Spencer likes to call them fin baits. We call them fish baits, whatever. Bobo, kingfish, tuna heads, cobia heads, barracuda, jack crevalle, but you don't want giant baits. You can't use giant baits, because if you use a giant bait, the bait size has to be able to be supported by this float. Now the float doesn't need to be on the surface, but it also, obviously, you don't want the bait to sink the float, because then it's just gonna end up on the bottom, and that's pointless. So we take Bobo, cut them in half. We caught that Mako on a Bobo, cut it in half, put the hook through the lips. So you want your bait setting vertically, okay? So you wanna hook your bait somewhere where everything's gonna be sitting, the presentation's gonna be sitting like this in the water column, because that's how this float's gonna end up. So once you got your bait hooked up, we like to use the rubber band technique. Band your bait up, get everything nice, get your hook exposure nice and good. You don't want to bury this circle hook in. We use a rubber band so the circle hook is fixed. We go over how to hook placement in other videos on this channel. I'll try to link it in the top right corner of our screen. But once you get your bait set, go ahead, go back to this swivel, this old swivel thing here. And then I'm going to explain this little intersection here. So the snap swivel needs to go to a breakaway style weight. Now I know for some of you, you're like, what the heck, man? I thought you told us to use spider weights, and breakaways are old school. Not for this rig. The reason we don't like using breakaway weights on our regular Gulf Coast Nation bottom rigs, which are available at terrafirmatackle.com, is because you tie your brick or you tie your sandbag that's biodegradable to your bait. And then if a shark picks up your bait and drops it, he has broken the weight loose, and now your bait's just floating. It ends up down the beach if it's rough, and it can just be a pain. With the spider weight, if he picks it up and drops it, you just reel the spider weight back into the ground. But this weight, and we use 12-pound mono from our breakaway to our sandbag that's biodegradable, or to a cinder block or a rock or whatever. Get something good and heavy because you want it down the bottom. But if something picks it up and picks up on your bait is not attached, or your breakaway weight is not attached to your bait, so it's not the same effect. A shark can pick up this bait, drop it, and you're still stuck, and your rig is still set. So snap swivel, 12-pound, 15-pound mono to your breakaway weight, and then you've got this swivel here, this barrel swivel that is free sliding along your entire leader. This is very, very important right here. You've got a couple options, and I'll show you what we do. I like to take this long line clip, and these long line clips are the same thing that we clip to our line with lights, and let them hang. So what you're gonna do is, as you see this thing opens up here, right? So you got your long line clip's gonna open up. I like to put it right on the back side of this snap swivel. So you just slide it right inside, slide it right through there, just like that. And then when you release this, it's gonna keep tension on it. So now your float's attached. You can also do it to this doubled up section of cable right there, but I prefer to do it just to the swivel. Just no real reason, I guess. I feel like it's a solid attachment. Don't attach it to the front side of ring, because it's gonna get in the way of it sliding. So basically now you've got your float, you've got your bait on your hook, and you've got this cable and a loop here, and then this whole thing can free slide all the way up and down to your main line, right? So now you're ready to kayak. You've got your breakaway. For a little visual representation, don't use a whole cinder block. I use these cinder blocks to spool line. I'll go over that tip and trick later on. But you've got your 12, 15 pound mono tied off to your weight. We use biodegradable. We use biodegradable sandbags. You fill them with sand. You can use cinder blocks or whatever. None of that's illegal. So you're taking 15 pound mono, wrap it around a couple times, then you tie it off to your swivel. So basically, you've got your weight on the bottom. So anytime you see the snap swivel, know that you've got your weight on the bottom. And now you're ready to load all of this stuff in your kayak. And so I'll do like a little bit of a kayak routine here. So you've got your rod over here, all right? Your beach is over here, and you're about to kayak this way. Okay, well, for some reason my GoPro decided to stop recording and didn't save anything else to the SD card, and I didn't find out until I started editing this video, but we're gonna get it done. So, like I was saying, you're in the kayak, and what I'm gonna do is use this all lovely 80 narrow here for our weight, all right? And I'm gonna just clip this clip here as if it's our breakaway weight like we were talking about. We've got our bait on, our float attached properly, all that good stuff. So let's get this done here. So we got our snap swivel, and I'm just gonna put it right here to the top of this, this harness lug, just for representation of the breakaway weight. Again, you're using 12 to 15 pound mono there. So you've got everything in your kayak, and you're about ready to go. So this is how we like to load it. So I'm gonna put this breakaway weight right here, cycle this back tight. And so normally we don't recommend putting the bait anywhere in your lap. It's just not a good technique, because the hook could end up in your leg or something like that, and it's, if you flip on the way out. But you put the weight in your lap, and then you've got basically your float and your cable right here in your bait. And what we like to do is we like to put it behind us. The first thing you're gonna do is you're going to put the float back here, and we have bungees in the back of our Scrambler XT. And so you've got the weight here. We put the float just kind of semi-secured, because you don't want your float to pop out, because if you put the bait in the back and your float pops out while you're paddling, obviously this is gonna have drag, it's gonna drag back, put pressure on your bait, and it's gonna sit back there and tangle the whole time, and then you're gonna get out there and you're gonna have a huge mess to deal with. So semi-secure your float so it's not gonna pop out of the back of the kayak while you're going. So you got your float back here on your bungees, and then you're gonna take your bait and just kind of free, sit it back here. When we're kayaking our normal Gulf Coast Nation leaders, we normally put a bungee over the hook, because that's where the pressure is coming straight, to the beach. But in this sense, there's no pressure on the bait from the rod from the beach. So we just kind of do a little loop up, and then we set the bait, out of the way. So it's gonna kind of look like this in a sense. Trying to keep all this straight here. Look like this in a sense while you're going. So you are in your kayak, and I'm not gonna sit down because I don't know if my frame's gonna get you guys, but you're in your kayak, you're kayaking out, all the pressure is right here on this main line, right? Because it free slides, so all the pressure is just like this to the beach. And your float is secured back here, and so the pressure is right to the snap swivel, which you have secured onto your pad eye. Attach the snap swivel, open it up, put it on a pad eye of your kayak. That way the pressure's on the swivel, not on that 12 to 15 pound mono, because if it breaks on the way out, you have to come back in and retie it. So you've got your swivel open, it's on a pad eye of your kayak, you're out, you've paddled your distance for whatever area you're at. For us, we take these from anywhere from 300 yards out to 500, 600, 700, 800 yards out. Just get them to clean water. You want clean, clear water. That's where your pelagic sharks are going to be hanging out. So you're out to your spot. You're happy. You're content. You have a VHF radio with you so you can communicate back and forth. Some guys use a phone. I know some guys use Bluetooth pieces in their ears. But however, you just need communication with your kayaker, especially for your first couple drops. Once you got it down, we don't necessarily need to talk to our kayakers, but it's always nice to, for multiple reasons. But for this rig, it's a little bit different than just throw the bait in the water and come back. So the first thing that you're going to do when you get to your spot and you're content with where you're at, you're sitting down in your kayak, you're going to cycle all of this 900-pound mono that's all the way back to the swivel to the main line. You're going to cycle it into the water. And I'm not going to cycle the whole thing here because it's a short scale ratio. So you're gonna cycle it through, cycle it through, cycle it through until you cycled it all the way to your swivel, right? So you're gonna have your mainline swivel right at this free sliding swivel, and all this extra 900-pound water, or wow, 900-pound mono is piled up in the water here, and you're gonna be drifting one way or the other unless it's just dead flat calm. If it is, congratulations, because you've got a great day. But most likely you're gonna be slightly drifting, so all this 900-pound mono is flowing black, flowing black. And then when you get there, I just go on the radio and I let my kayak, or let my guy on the beach know, hey, I'm about to drop the weight, about to drop the weight. That's when you're going to unsnap your swivel from your pad eye, take it off, obviously re-snap your swivel, and then you're gonna take your weight and just gently set it into the water, okay? Now with that, the reason we like to cycle, the reason you have to cycle all that mono through is because if you were to just drop it under tension on the way down, in our area, it's anywhere from 20 to 40 feet deep. And so that tension on the way down might break your breakaway. And then again, you have the same situation where you have to kayak back to the beach, retie on a breakaway weight. So you drop it with all this slack, you're gonna see all this slack go shooting out. And then, you know, since you're at the swivel, most likely in your area, you're gonna have a little bit of slack towards the end. So your weight's now on the bottom. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reattach it to our weight here for this sake of this video. And I'm gonna slide it forward, hopefully just in the frame here, so you guys can get a good idea of how we're looking. So now I've told my guy on the beach, hey, I've dropped the weight. So he knows once they drop the weight to go ahead and start reeling to get tight. So now what you're gonna do is when you tell him you drop the weight, you're gonna go back behind you, you're gonna get your float out of your bungee and just set it into the water, okay? So you're gonna set your float into the water like so. All your line has now came tight, semi-tight, right? So now you see this, all this slack start to come out because the guy on the beach is reeling it, and it comes semi-tight. You can see it on the float. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna go back behind you again, take your bait out, and then once you see that the float is kind of, you know, drifted away from you and everything's gonna be clear, just set your bait into the water. You don't wanna throw anything, you don't wanna throw your weight, throw nothing, just set it in the water, real nice and gentle. That way the rig is going to sit and present itself right. The main thing you're looking for is you're not setting your bait right on top of this, because if it tangles up and it's gonna get into a big mess, then your bait might be looking all weird in the water column. You don't want that. You want your bait to be sitting right. So once you see that the main line, the mono, is away from everything, it's kind of come tight from the beach, your float's kind of out away from you, just set your bait right in the water. Then go ahead and let your guy know on the beach, hey, I've dropped the bait, I've dropped the bait. Once your person in the kayak has dropped the bait, you can go ahead and get tight on your breakaway. Okay, 12, 15-pound mono. You obviously don't want to reel through it really hard, but you can put some pretty good tension on that setup there. And then everything's gonna come tight, and I'll show you guys how this float rig works and presents your bait in the water. So you're tight, and I'm gonna go ahead and try to get a good wrap here. So you are now tight. Obviously this is gonna be your water column, all right? These blue curtains, at the top of the curtains is the surface, and obviously down the curtains is ratioed to anywhere from 20 to 40 feet deep. So your float is obviously going to float, especially if you've put the proper size bait on there. So your float's up at the surface, right? So I'm gonna kind of sit it up here. Oh yeah, look at that. So your float's up at the surface, and everything's kind of come tight here. And again, it's not gonna come as tight as it could, but so this is kind of the representation. Obviously, it's not gonna be this short because your float is gonna wanna float all the way to the end of the swivel there. So this will be, you know, that big long section of 600-pound mono, and then your float's at the surface. Sometimes when your guy on the beach comes tight to it, that float might get tight enough, you know, from the beach to kind of sink that float a little bit. It most likely won't be lower than 2 to 3 foot below the surface, so don't freak out if your guy comes tight and you see that float go below the water. It's not because the bait's sinking the float, it's just because the tension will sink that float a little bit. Not a big deal, because your bait's still gonna be up off the bottom, which is what you want. And this is a good idea. I'm gonna loop this up 1 or 2 times here so you guys can see. And this is just a ratio down. All right, and there you kind of have the general idea. There you kind of have the general idea of what is happening when it's just sitting. So everything's sitting right You've got your float on the surface or just barely subsurface, and then your bait is just presented. You know, this is the bottom, this is the surface. Your bait is presented mid to high water column, all right? And what that does is pelagic sharks do not tend to feed off the bottom, okay? That's not something that is up for conversation. And our theory is that the pelagic sharks like Makos that are caught in our area are, I mean, to my knowledge, they're all caught on bottom rigs. And I think those are few and far between Mako sharks that happen to feed off the bottom. They're either hungry or it's just a rare occasion. They're obviously, their first reaction is to hunt blackfin tuna, bobo, kingfish, whatever's in the area. They're feeding stuff on the surface, cobia. They're running after things. They're built for speed, so they don't need to feed off the bottom like a tiger shark. A tiger shark most likely is not going to catch a tuna unless it's hooked on the end of a line on a boat. So these sharks have a high advantage. Makos and other pelagic sharks, you know, they're built for speed, so they're going after things, they're chasing things down. So you want your bait mid-water column like this, so you put your bait in a good spot for those pelagic sharks. So let's go over what happens and what you should see from the beach when you get picked up. So you've got your rod tension kind of tight. We like to mouse trap these, quote unquote. Basically, that's just getting tight on your weight, backing the reel down to about 5 to 10 pounds of drag, right? So it's not super hard to pull out, but it's also not super easy to pull out, because what happens is when the shark picks up this bait, and again, I have to take it off to kind of show, but this is all happening on the surface. They're going to take your bait and they're either going to head south with it, which means they go down until they get over the top of or past your weight. Then all this comes tight. It's going to hit that weight, break your breakaway, and pretty much from that moment, you're hooked. So if traditionally, if the shark goes south and everything goes right, the shark's heading south, you're going to see your rod double over. My Mako wasn't zzz, it was just a click, 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 click. He had broken that breakaway weight and was just cruising with the hook right in the corner of his mouth and heading south. So I got on it, bumped the drag up a little bit, 15 pounds, 20, 25, 30, 35, and then went ahead and went to our strike setting about 60, 65 pounds of drag and got on the fish. Sometimes they will obviously pick it up. They can swim, east-west, and I'm saying this for our area because our beach is south and then, that way's north, whatever. But just know in your area, either away from you or towards you. So if they swim towards you, which in our area is north, they're going to swim obviously the other way, up, 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 until they hit the swivel. When they hit the swivel, they're going to do the same thing. It's going to get tight. It's going to pop your breakaway loose, which is going to engage that hook. And what you're going to see from the beach is obviously your line's going to slack up. Your breakaway weight's been broke, and then now the fish is swimming in, causing slack line. You just need to go to it, get on it, get tight to it, okay, at 5 to 10 pounds of pressure, and then wait for that fish to turn away from you, because that's how circle hooks work. If they're facing right towards you, the hook's going to come out of their mouth. You want them semi going away from you, even if it's at an angle. So then you want to go ahead and get tight to your fish, wait till they start going away from you, and then go ahead and do the same thing. Get tight on them at 10, 15 pounds of drag, bump it up to 20, 25, bump it up to 30, 35, and then when they start pulling drag, go ahead and go to your strike setting, which we prefer 55, 65 pounds of drag. From then on, you're just enjoying your fight. It's all normal because everything's gonna slide down. And so now your fight is pretty traditional. You've got your float rig right here. I'm gonna undo this. Everything's pretty traditional now. You're tight on your fish. This intersection right here is just going to come tight. That's why Spencer puts the beads right there so it doesn't push on the crimps or do something weird. So you're fighting your fish tight. Your cable's all the way back to your shark. When you get them to the beach, you're going to lead your fish. You're going to see this long section of mono first. Just wrap up on it, get your wraps, pull them up to the float. When you get on the float, just watch your hands and all this intersection of stuff. Don't get your hands caught up in this and get, your finger pinched or something like that. Go ahead and get your hands on the cable and then just do your traditional release. If it's a prohibited species, these float rigs still will get eaten by dusky sharks, still will get eaten by tiger sharks and by sandbars and stuff like that. They still feed in the water column. So if it's your, prohibited species, do your appropriate release, get to them, pop the hook out because you smashed your barb down. It's easy to pop out and get them right back in quick. If it's your Mako shark and you're going to harvest, go ahead. First thing you should do is probably put the fish out of its misery, just like tuna. Go above the head, right between the eyes, stick a knife, go back and forth. That'll scramble the brain. It's pretty much an instant death at that point. They're going to do some wiggling because of nerves, but it's pretty much putting them out. So put them out, harvest your fish as soon as possible. But if you're planning to release, even if it's a Mako that you plan to release, you should still treat it as a prohibited species release to get them back in quick, because obviously if you're releasing it, your idea is to let them swim off, and then get a new bait, get a new breakaway on, and run it again, and keep popping sharks all day long. So I hope that made sense to you guys. I hope this representation of the float rig helps you guys get a better grasp on it. Yes, you can make these float rigs at home, but no, we do not recommend it. Just like you can make your bottom leaders at home, our Gulf Coast Nation Panhandle rigs from Terra Firma Tackle. You can make that stuff at home. For the guys who have been shark fishing for many years, they know how to make leaders and know the ins and outs and know the things to do and not to do, you're probably going to be fine. Make sure you use cable. Don't use wire, because wire can wrap up in that mono, and then it's either going to kink the wire or break the mono. So use cable on those rigs. But if you guys are new to this stuff or you don't really know much about the float rig, just go ahead and pick one or two up from terrafirmatackle.com. Get them in your hands first, use them, then once you have a better understanding after having some successful trips with the float rigs, then yes, you can probably go ahead and make your own. But like I said earlier, Spencer Wonder is a flipping legend. The guy has, these are invented by him. I mean, these are battle-tested float rigs that have caught, I mean, he's caught threshers on them, he's caught big sea bass on them, the elite suspended baits, tons of Makos on them, whites, everything you can imagine. And you know, these things work because he puts them to the test before he sells them to you guys. So these things are 100% functional, what we do. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. I hope you guys got something out of it. If you did, be sure to give us a thumbs up, drop a comment below, share it with your friends, and as always, we'll catch you guys next week. Phew!